Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we unpack complex ideas, surprising truths, all from the sources that you provide. Today we're just taking, a really compelling journey, I think, right into the heart of early 20th century Beijing. And we're seeing it through the eyes of a character whose struggles, honestly, they resonate far beyond his own time and place. We're embarking on a deep dive into Rickshaw Boy, sometimes known as Camel Xiangzi. Specifically, we're looking at chapters 11 through 15. Now, for anyone unfamiliar, this is a foundational work of modern Chinese literature by Lao Sha. It tells the story of Xiangzi, who's this hardworking, really earnest rickshaw puller. And he has this one singular driving dream, just to own his own rickshaw. Seems simple, right? Our mission today is really to follow Xiangzi through a pretty tumultuous few days right around the Lunar New Year. We'll explore his deepening despair, these unexpected entanglements he gets pulled into, and the profound ways his environment and the people in it relentlessly shape his destiny. You'll see just how quickly circumstances can strip away a person's dignity, their choices, leaving them with, little but the bare instinct for survival.
Yeah, and what's particularly striking in these specific chapters is how, despite being rooted in a very specific time, a very specific place, Beijing back then, they illuminate these really universal themes. The erosion of hope, which is just crushing, the intricate complexities of human relationships, and the moral compromises people are forced to make under just immense pressure. So we're not just looking at what happens to Xiangzi, but really why it matters and what it reveals about, the human spirit when it's pushed to its absolute limits.
So let's unpack this. Let's see how one man's pursuit of a really simple dream becomes this battle for his very soul.
The weight of the world and an unforeseen shadow, chapter 11.
Okay, so we begin with Xiangzi grappling with this really intense internal war. On one hand, he's tempted by despair, thinking, maybe I should just enjoy today. He believes a poor person's fate is like a date pit, sharp at both ends. Hiccup. He sees childhood and old age as just periods of starvation, basically. And only youth offers this brief window to, quote, act like a person. This isn't just a fleeting thought for him, is it? What does this really stark outlook tell us about the socioeconomic realities then, especially for the poor?
It's a really profound commentary, isn't it, on the lack of, any real social safety nets in that era. This fatalism, it isn't just Xiangzi's personal despair. It feels like a deeply ingrained mindset among his social class. For the poor, life was precarious from beginning to end. Xiangzi observes that only in the prime of life, when you're young and strong, can you truly live. So he feels it's almost foolish not to really enjoy oneself during this brief window, because as he thinks, this village will not have this shop again. Their only security is their temporary physical strength, which is just a brutal reality underscoring their limited agency.
Yeah, that limited agency. Yet even with this creeping fatalism, there's his that literal clay pot filled with his painstakingly hard-earned savings. That pulls him back. He's only dozens of yuan away from buying his rickshaw. And he just can't abandon this lifelong goal. He's determined, he says, to walk the right path, definitely. It's like this tiny, tangible glimmer of hope fighting against this rising tide of cynicism.
Oh, absolutely. And that clay pot is so much more than just money, isn't it? It's the physical embodiment of his hope, his discipline, painstakingly accumulated through immense labor and just sheer self-denial. This struggle between giving in to that fleeting hedonism and clinging to his dream, it really highlights Xiangzi's core character, his immense tenacity, his unwavering desire for independence. And it reminds us just how much he has invested, not just financially, but emotionally, into this singular pursuit of autonomy in a society that really offers very little upward mobility.
So as the Lunar New Year approaches, the streets become this chaotic symphony, right? Sellers of osu, sugar melons, for the kitchen god vendors shouting everywhere. But for Xiangzi, this increasing revelry, it only makes his heart feel just tighter. He dreads the terrible 27th. Can you explain the significance of this date? Why does it fill him with such anxiety?
Yeah, the terrible 27th is a really crucial detail here. It's the date of Old Master Liu's 69th birthday celebration. He's the rickshaw factory owner, and maybe more importantly for Xiangzi, who knew his father. Now, traditionally, New Year is a time of joy, renewal.
Right.
But for Xiangzi, this specific date just inverts that entirely. It becomes a source of mounting anxiety. It amplifies his personal woes instead of offering relief. It's a really clear sign that his personal troubles, specifically Hunyu's influence and the pressure she's putting on him, are just inextricably intertwined with his economic freedom, his future.
Okay. And amidst all this festive chaos, the weather itself turns ominous.
An east wind brings dark clouds, then this sparse snow that turns into tiny, heavy pellets. The streets get slippery, forcing Shangzi to be extra cautious while pulling his rickshaw. And his physical and mental strain are just palpable. His eyes are sunken, his car darkening, and he feels this skuye, like a nervous itching, like a child's heat rash in summer. It's almost like the elements themselves are reflecting his inner turmoil.
Oh, definitely. This detailed description of the weather and its physical impact on Shangzi, it serves as this powerful metaphor for his internal state. Those heavy snow pellets, the slippery ground, his increasing physical discomfort, they all reflect the overwhelming burden of his worries. He is literally and figuratively losing his footing, just struggling to maintain control amidst these external pressures and his internal anxieties. It's a classic literary technique, right, to externalize that internal turmoil. It lets us really feel his profound distress.
So he's pulling Mr. Cow home from the West City. The streets are getting quieter. But then, as if his internal turmoil wasn't enough, his journey takes this unexpected, deeply unsettling turn. He starts to feel a presence following him, a bicycle. And he hates bicycles, calls them obnoxious, stealthy, reckless, always getting the rickshaw puller blamed in an accident. He even fantasizes about slamming on his brakes just to make the guy crash. You can almost feel that century-old road rage, can't you?
Exactly. And it's a tiny detail, but so potent. Because this isn't just, a personal annoyance for Shangzi. It reflects a broader social tension of the time. Rickshaws were traditional manual labor. Bicycles represented something newer, more individualistic transport, often associated with a different, usually more privileged social class.
Ah, okay.
So the rickshaw pullers, the absolute lowest rung of society, they felt threatened and just unfairly treated by both the newer vehicles and the authorities, who almost always sided against them. It's this micro-level illustration of the constant vulnerability of someone like Shangzi, highlighting how even these minor interactions can be fraught with class-based resentment and injustice.
Then Mr. Cow, who's observant and remarkably calm, he confirms Xiangzi's suspicion. He tells Xiangzi, don't stop at home if the follower persists, go to Mr. Zhu's house. And he says, don't panic, which of course only makes Xiangzi more anxious. Mr. Cow, a learned man, is worried. Then this guy is certainly no small fry. What does Mr. Cow's composure, contrasted with Shangzi's rising panic, reveal about their positions here?
It highlights that stark class divide, even when facing the same danger. Mr. Cow, with his connections, like Mr. Zhu, he has options. He has resources that Shangzi utterly lacks.
Right.
His warning about the follower and the implicit danger, it instantly shifts the narrative from Shangzi's personal struggle to something involving larger, more dangerous forces. And Shangzi's immediate assumption of grave danger, even without knowing the specifics, it just shows his ingrained understanding of how precarious his world is, how quickly his life can be upended by forces completely beyond his control.
And then the identity is confirmed. Shangzi recognizes him immediately. A detective. Notes his blue greatcoat, low-brimmed woolen hat. This just raises the stakes immensely. Despite his overwhelming fear, Shangzi pushes on, sweating in the cold. The revelation turns a mere annoyance into this terrifying, potentially life-threatening situation, forces him into a desperate flight.
Yeah, this recognition is indeed critical. It instantly elevates the situation from a personal nuisance to a full-blown political threat. The presence of detectives implies state surveillance, potential arrest, a terrifying prospect in that era, especially for someone like Shangzi, who is completely outside that political realm. And though he doesn't fully understand the why of it, he instinctively grasps the gravity. His physical reactions, the sweating, the frantic pace, they vividly convey his primal fear, his utter powerlessness against state authority.
Okay, so they finally arrive at Mr. Zhuo's house. Mr. Cow immediately tells Xiangzi, pull the rickshaw inside, quickly close the gate. Then he gives Xiangzi this series of urgent, rapid-fire instructions. Go back by car, tell his wife and Gao Ma to come to Mr. Zhuo's house by a separate car, bring essentials, and crucially, thong, those few paintings from the study. He also tells Xiangzi, lock their main gate, sleep in the study if trouble comes, escape by jumping the backyard wall into the Wang family's compound. He gives Xiangzi 5 yuan, tells him not to worry about their belongings. This is a very specific, almost desperate set of instructions.
It really underscores the immediate, profound peril Mr. Cow is in. His detailed instructions, especially about those paintings from the study, suggest items of significant value. Maybe not just monetary, but possibly sensitive political information, or maybe personally invaluable artifacts. The fact that Mr. Cow entrusts Shangzi with these critical, dangerous tasks even gives him money. It shows a desperate reliance on him, highlighting Shangzi's position as this seemingly trustworthy, if completely unwitting, pawn in a larger, more dangerous game. And these instructions also reveal this hidden network of allies, Mr. Zuo, the Wang family, that gives Mr. Cao a degree of security. A sharp contrast to Chiangzi's isolated existence, his utter lack of any kind of support system like that.
The Night of Despair and Unveiled Truths, Chapter 12.
Right, so after leaving Mr. Zhu's, Shangzi is just utterly adrift. He desperately needs a moment, just a second to process what's happened. But there's Yuso. No place for him to sit, snow everywhere, all the small tea houses are closed. Even if they were open, he wants a quiet place where his tears, which he feels could fall at any moment, won't be seen. The vast, silent, snow-covered city offers him no comfort, no refuge. It just amplifies his loneliness.
Yeah, that scene beautifully captures his profound disorientation and loneliness. The vast, silent city, it offers no solace, no refuge. It almost feels like this desolate wasteland. It symbolizes his utter lack of belonging, of security, a direct contrast to the privileged who have these safe havens. The imagery of the silver white world with Sire Puto Ita Firka Way, the silver white world with Sejong's inability to find even a moment of peace to collect his thoughts. It just reflects the relentless pressure he's under, where even a moment of quiet reflection is just denied him.
He tries to think about his options. A cheap inn. Too risky. Clothes stolen. Bed bugs, probably. A bigger hotel. Can't afford it. His 5 yuan is his entire fortune now. A bathhouse. Closes at midnight. He feels utterly destitute, he thinks. He thinks after years in the city, all he has is the clothes on his back and 5 yuan. He's even lost his bedding. And he laments that he's just a jark, a big, clumsy, dark, useless, good-for-nothing. No skills beyond his physical labor. What does this internal inventory reveal about his state?
It really drives home the precariousness of life for someone in Jiangxi's position, doesn't it? That detailed assessment of his dire financial state, his utter lack of options, and the loss of his bedding, a basic comfort, a necessity, it symbolizes his complete stripping down. How easily the poor can lose even their most fundamental possessions when caught in a crisis like this. His self-deprecating reflection on his uselessness, despite his incredible strength, it underscores the psychological toll. He sees himself as utterly powerless against these external forces, and his repeated failures, despite all his hard work, have just eroded his once strong self-perception.
Drawn by a sense of duty, maybe? Or perhaps guilt for having seemingly abandoned them? Xiangzi decides to return to Mr. Cao's house. He sees new car tracks, wonders if the family already left. Fearful of being caught, yet with nowhere else to go, he gently pushes the door, finds it open, sees the light on in his own room. Shows his own room. He wanted to cry. Just the simple sight of a familiar place, a space he considered his. It's this overwhelming emotional anchor in his terrifying night.
It's such a powerful moment, isn't it? A return to some semblance of safety, however temporary, however fragile. The sight of his own room, a space he considered his, triggers this deeply emotional response. It represents a fragile anchor in his chaotic world, a last vestige of normalcy. And his hesitation at the door, his internal justification, ki an a, e an o. Well, if I've nowhere to go, might as well get caught here. It just highlights his utter desolation, the profound feeling of having nothing left to lose. It's a testament to that human need for even the illusion of a sanctuary when you're utterly adrift and in despair.
Inside, he finds Gao Ma, Mr. Cao's housekeeper. She's terrified at first, but quickly recovers and then scolds him for disappearing. She recounts the frantic packing, Mr. Cao's phone call, her desperate decision to stay behind to watch the house. She's furious he didn't show up to help. Paints this vivid picture of the chaotic exodus, her own fear and frustration.
Yeah, Gao Ma's narrative fills in those gaps from Mr. Cao's perspective. Paints a really vivid picture of that chaotic, dangerous escape. Her anger at Changzi, though, well, understandable given the circumstances. It also highlights his perceived abandonment, especially since he was entrusted with that crucial task of helping the family.
Right.
It shows the widespread ripple effect of political turmoil on ordinary people. How it disrupts their lives, forces difficult choices, creates misunderstandings even among those just trying to help each other survive.
Jiangzi. He's struggling for words, but he finally tells Gao Ma flee immediately. Warn Mr. Cao that the detective said he would definitely catch him. Mr. Zhu's house isn't safe. Jiangzi says he'll lock the main gate, then jump to the Wang family's house to sleep. He's, sorry, Mr. Cao. Gao Ma is still kind of confused by the suddenness, the gravity of it all. She agrees to relay the message.
Xiangzi's advice to Gao Ma, despite his own recent terror, still lacking the full picture. It demonstrates this residual sense of responsibility, of loyalty. His decision to act as a decoy, securing the house then fleeing, it suggests this desperate attempt to do something useful, even if it leaves him incredibly vulnerable. His apology to Mr. Cao indicates that internal conflict between self-preservation and a lingering sense of duty, even when the situation is way beyond his control and he's already lost so much.
Alone again in his room, Xiangzi picks up a piece of his broken clay pot, then drops it. His mind is racing. Was the detective even real? But then he remembers Mr. Cao's fear. He feels the injustice of losing his own money because of Mr. Cao's troubles, and he rationalizes that he can no longer be responsible for the Cao family's affairs. He talks to himself, justifying his actions, picking up his bedding, this internal struggle. It reveals his inherent honesty fighting against the brutal reality of his situation.
This internal monologue, where Zhangzi debates his moral obligations, it's absolutely crucial. It vividly shows the profound psychological toll of his ordeal. He's struggling to reconcile his innate honesty with the harsh realities of survival. That broken clay pot. It's not just a physical object. It symbolizes his shattered hopes, the theft of his future. A direct consequence of being unwittingly caught in someone else's political mess.
Exactly.
His self-justification, that his own significant losses absolve him of further responsibility. It marks a significant step towards a more cynical view of the world, born out of immense personal suffering, and the dawning recognition that really no one else is looking out for him.
Determined to find refuge, Zhangzi goes to the backyard, quietly calls for old Cheng, a rickshaw puller for the Wang family next door. No answer, so he makes a bold decision, throws his bedding over the wall, jumps after it, heart racing. He finds old Cheng's room. And Zhangzi, usually so reserved, feels this uncharacteristic warmth, this comfort at the familiar voice. This small act of connection, even with a distant acquaintance, provides a temporary balm for his terror.
That act of jumping the wall. It's both a literal and symbolic leap into the unknown, a desperate search for safety that severs his last formal connection to the Cao household. It represents a complete reliance on his own wits and, well, the kindness of strangers. The unexpected comfort Xianzi finds in old Cheng's presence, despite their limited prior relationship, it speaks to that profound human need for connection, for shared experience in times of crisis. Old Cheng, though not a close friend, represents this sliver of human warmth, of understanding, a temporary reprieve from his terrifying isolation and the relentless danger he just faced.
Inside old Cheng's room, Xiangzi is still mostly silent, struggling to explain what happened. Old Cheng, concerned, gives him a cigarette, eventually gets Xiangzi to confirm the Cao family fled due to trouble, and that he's locked their gate. Old Cheng offers to tell Mr. Wang, the owner, but Xiangzi, fearing questions, just says, "Let's talk tomorrow. The matter is simply unclear. The trauma is too fresh, the words just won't come."
His inability to fully articulate his experience, just describing it as trouble, highlights the overwhelming nature of what he's been through. He's not just emotionally overwhelmed, but maybe also fearful of revealing too much, even to a sympathetic ear, lest he inadvertently bring trouble upon old Cheng or himself.
Right, could be dangerous.
Yeah, this silence suggests a deeper, almost inexpressible trauma. A learned caution born from his exposure to the harsh realities of a world where information can be dangerous, weaponized. It also sets the stage for us, the audience, to finally learn the full, devastating story of Mr. Cao's predicament.
Okay, so to truly grasp the gravity of Xiangzi's situation, we need to rewind just slightly. Uncover the true nature of the threat against Mr. Cao. It's a story far more insidious than Xiangzi could have imagined. Mr. Cao taught a few hours at a university. A student named Ruan Ming, a radical socialist, was close to Mr. Cao, but their friendship fractured when Mr. Cao, as a teacher, failed Ruan Ming in an exam. Despite his belief that students should take studies seriously, regardless of personal feelings, this clash of academic integrity versus political fervor, it's key.
This is indeed the core of the political dimension that intertwines so tragically with Xiangzi's personal fate. Mr. Cao, himself a socialist, is ironically betrayed by a more radical student. It's a classic conflict, isn't it? Idealism versus pragmatism, academic integrity versus revolutionary fervor.
Yeah.
Ruan Ming's belief that a determined youth should engage in revolutionary work and disregard studies. It reflects a common, often volatile mindset during periods of social upheaval, where intellectual pursuits were frequently devalued in favor of direct action. And the fact that Ruan Ming equated face or reputation with revolution's value in China, that offers a critical cultural insight into the motivations behind this particular, deeply personal betrayal.
Ming, enraged by his failure, his impending suspension, saw Mr. Cao's actions as hypocritical, malicious. So he decided to take revenge by denouncing Mr. Cao to the party headquarters, accusing him of propagating radical ideas among the youth. He explicitly wanted to drag a teacher down with him, revealing this vindictive opportunism.
Yeah, this act of denunciation is just a chilling example of how deeply personal grudges can be leveraged within a politically charged climate, turning ideology into a weapon for revenge. Ming's desire to drag a teacher down with him shows this ruthless, self-serving opportunism, illustrating precisely how individuals could exploit the political tensions of the time for personal gain or retribution. It's a stark reminder that even progressive movements can be corrupted by personal resentments and the desire for power.
Mr. Cao, meanwhile, had heard rumors of his impending trouble. He found it amusing, actually, knowing his socialism was not thorough. His love for traditional art hindered any truly radical actions. He thought it was ridiculous to be labeled a fissue, a revolutionary mentor. Initially wasn't concerned, even when colleagues warned him. So it sounds like Mr. Cao's intellectual detachment really blinded him to the severity of the real-world danger. Was this a common trap for intellectuals then, or more unique to him?
That's a fascinating point. It's probably a bit of both. His naivete about the brutal realities of political purges was certainly shared by some intellectuals who felt perhaps protected by their academic pursuits. But his specific moderation, his artistic inclinations, also made him uniquely vulnerable, as even a hint of radicalism could be exaggerated for political ends, demonstrating the arbitrary nature of such accusations. His belief that his unthorough socialism would shield him shows a profound misunderstanding of how easily one could be labeled and persecuted during a period of intense political suspicion.
But as detectives started investigating, arresting people during the winter break, Mr. Cao began to feel followed. His amusement turned to seriousness. He even considered the idea that going to jail could be a good opportunity to gain reputation as an important person, even calling it a qualification. But ultimately, he refused to become a fake warrior, choosing to remain true to his conscience, his authentic beliefs.
This internal struggle within Mr. Cao is quite revealing. It shows the corrupting allure of notoriety. Where political persecution could ironically enhance one's social standing, the idea that jail could serve as a qualification for an important person reveals a cynical truth about how status and influence could be gained in such a politically charged environment.
Wow.
However, his decision to resist becoming a fake warrior reaffirms his integrity, reveals a core value, an authentic commitment to his beliefs, rather than opportunism or shallow ambition. He refuses to be used as a symbol for a cause he doesn't fully embody.
That's when he went to Mr. Zuo, who had a plan. Mr. Zuo, with his connections, believed that people are more powerful than the law. Mr. Zhu suggested Mr. Cao hide at his place and, when necessary, use money to smooth things over with officials. This practical advice speaks volumes about the corrupt system they lived under.
Oh, absolutely. Mr. Zuo's advice, people are more powerful than the law, is a damning indictment of the corruption and arbitrary nature of justice at the time. It implies that personal connections, bribery, were far more effective than legal defenses, offering a stark glimpse into a system where influence just trumped justice. This reliance on or greasing palms, was a common survival strategy for the privileged in a chaotic society, highlighting the deep inequities in how justice was applied, experienced by different social classes.
The detectives, they knew Mr. Cao frequented Mr. Zhu's house, would likely flee there. They didn't dare offend Mr. Zhu, but they could certainly scare Mr. Cao. Their real aim was to force him to Mr. Zuo so they could extort money from him. And as for Shangzi, he was simply hit the spot, deserved it, or maybe just unlucky. An easy, opportunistic target for a quick buck. He was just expendable, a mere bonus in their scheme.
This reveals the true cynicism, the predatory nature of these detectives. They weren't after justice or ideology, they were purely after money. Shangzi's unfortunate timing, his social vulnerability, made him an easy mark, a collateral gain in their extortion scheme. The phrase, "wu," is just a brutal commentary on the utter expendability of people like Shangzi in the eyes of those in power.
Yeah.
He is the ultimate rickshaw puller, symbolizing those who tease, eat coarse grains, bleed blood, doing the hardest work for the least reward, and utterly defenseless against exploitation by those who wield power arbitrarily.
So Shangzi finishes his cigarette, still utterly unable to make sense of it all. He feels like a chicken held by a cook, just wanting to catch his breath. He wants to talk to old Cheng but can't find the words, feeling like a mute. All his efforts, buying a rickshaw, saving money, only lead to others bullying him. He feels utterly helpless, lamenting that even a stray dog has to be avoided, yet he still gets bullied.
That imagery of the chicken,
Right.
it captures Xiangzi's complete powerlessness, the crushing weight of his situation. His inability to articulate his feelings, despite his immense suffering, is this poignant portrayal of emotional shutdown. The repetition of being bullied, victimized, emphasizes his recurring experience of exploitation. Despite his efforts to be harmless, avoid trouble. It's a tragic portrayal of how continuous oppression can strip a person of their voice, their will to resist, leaving them feeling less than human, utterly silenced by the injustice.
After much restless tossing and turning, freezing on the ground, Xiangzi sits up. He's still worried about being blamed if anything goes missing from Mr. Cao's house. He wakes old Cheng, making him verify that Xiangzi hasn't taken a single blade of grass or twig from the Cao residence, that his belongings are just his own 5 yuan and bedding. Old Cheng, still sleepy, reassures him.
This desperate need for old Cheng to bear witness to his honesty. It's incredibly telling, isn't it? It highlights Yangzi's innate sense of integrity, his profound fear of being falsely accused. In a world where his reputation, however humble, is all he has left, clearing his name, even in the middle of the night, to a semi-conscious old Cheng is of paramount importance to him. It's a tragic commentary on how the oppressed must constantly validate their innocence to avoid further suffering, as their word often holds so little weight in the eyes of those above them.
The Path of Surrender, Chapter 13.
Dawn breaks. Crowing chickens signaling the approaching Lunar New Year. Jiangzi, having barely slept, sits up. The snow stopped, leaving a thin layer. Faint gray light illuminates the ground. He sees his deep footprints from the night before, still visible despite the fresh dusting of snow. The new year, usually a symbol of new beginnings, finds him in profound despair, with the traces of his recent terror literally etched behind him.
The symbolism there is incredibly potent. The chicken calls, typically a sign of prosperity, new beginnings. They contrast so sharply with Xiangzi's sleepless night, his profound internal turmoil. His visible footprints in the snow serve as this literal and metaphorical trace of his desperate flight, the difficult, painful path he's walked. They're a tangible reminder of his struggles that cannot be easily erased, a physical representation of the burdens he carries, even as the world around him brightens with the promise of a new year that offers him no such hope.
To busy himself, and maybe subconsciously, to erase those tracks, Xiangzi quietly finds a broom, sweeps the entire courtyard of the Wang family's house. The snow is heavy, makes the task difficult, but he pushes through. Sweating, feeling a temporary warmth and ease, this act of cleaning, physical and immediate, it offers a brief escape from his mental anguish.
Xiangzi's act of sweeping is far more than just a chore. It's a profound coping mechanism. It's his way of regaining some sense of control, of purpose, in a world that has stripped him of both. The sheer physical exertion offers a momentary escape from his relentless mental anguish, and the act of erasing his footprints reflects that subconscious desire to literally leave behind the painful events of the previous night. It shows his ingrained work ethic, even in despair, a habit born of a life of hard labor, which becomes this default setting for him to channel his distress.
Old Cheng wakes up despite his sleepiness, notices Xiangzi's hard work. He insists on making hot water for tea, and seeing Xiangzi's exhaustion, offers him this generous breakfast. Sweet gruel, pancakes, fried dough, urging him, don't starve yourself. It's a small but powerful gesture of human kindness.
Old Cheng's kindness is a small but incredibly significant moment of human warmth for Xiangzi. It highlights that quiet solidarity that can exist among those who struggle. Offering a brief respite from the relentless harshness of his life, the shared meal, simple yet hearty, symbolizes a moment of genuine comfort, basic sustenance, in a world that often denies him even that. This fleeting act of generosity provides such a stark contrast to the callousness Xiangzi so recently experienced from the detective and the systemic indifference of society.
Xiangzi, finally able to speak more openly, recounts the events of the previous night to Old Cheng. Old Cheng listens, processes, then gives his advice. In my opinion, you should still go find Mr. Cao. He argues Xiangzi wasn't disloyal, just overwhelmed by the sudden danger. Mr. Cao would likely understand, maybe even compensate him. Old Cheng urges him, go quickly, leave your bedding behind.
Old Cheng's advice, rooted in his greater experience, his pragmatic understanding of the world. It offers Xiangzi this flicker of hope, a logical path forward. He validates Xiangzi's actions, absolving him of guilt, which is absolutely crucial for Xiangzi's fragile mental state.
Yeah.
This advice reflects a belief that even in chaotic times, some moral principles, some mutual understanding can still exist, especially among Kioch people of the streets who truly understand the harsh realities of survival, of mutual aid.
Just as Yangzi feels the spark of hope, prepares to leave, a new visitor arrives, Wang Er, from Mr. Zhu's house. He confirms Mr. Cao and his family have indeed fled. Heading to Tianjin, maybe Shanghai. Without mentioning Shangzi, this news is just a devastating blow, isn't it? It crushes that fragile hope that had just begun to stir within him.
Yeah. It's such a cruel twist of fate, truly extinguishing that renewed hope for Shangzi. Mr. Cao's departure without a word about Shangzi, however practical, desperate, given his own flight, leaves Shangzi feeling utterly abandoned. It emphasizes the transient nature of relationships across class lines, especially when danger strikes. Shangzi is left with nowhere to go, no clear path forward. His last viable option is just abruptly taken from him, highlighting his profound isolation, his expendability in the eyes of those above him.
With all other avenues closed, Shangzi makes a momentous decision. Picks up his bedding, declares, "The Renhei rickshaw factory. There's nowhere else to go." This single sentence encapsulates his resignation, the depth of his grievances, shame, and helplessness. He feels he has no choice but to surrender to the Black Tower like Hunyu. He concludes that his dignity, strength, loyalty, righteousness, all completely useless because he has a dog's life.
This is a truly pivotal moment of tragic surrender for Shangzi, the Renhei rickshaw factory. It isn't just a physical place, it's symbolic of his fate, of Hunyu's inescapable, overwhelming influence, his realization that his virtues are useless because he has a dog's life. It's such a bitter, profound commentary on the social system that renders individual merit meaningless for those at the very bottom. It signifies a complete loss of agency, a tragic acceptance of his reduced status. And the description of Hunyu as a Black Tower, it's incredibly vivid, emphasizing her imposing, inescapable presence in his life, a figure of overwhelming dark power.
He arrives at the factory, hesitant, but pushes through the gate, his face burning hot. He tries to formulate some defiant speech for Hunyu, something to assert his remaining will. But when he sees her, he can't speak a single word. The shame, the humiliation are too overwhelming, silencing his planned defiance completely.
His burning face symbolizes his profound shame, the complete breakdown of his resolve. The stark contrast between his rehearsed defiance and his actual silence upon seeing Hunyu. It underscores her immense power over him, his now diminished capacity for resistance. It suggests her presence elicits this primal fear or resignation that utterly silences his internal struggle, highlighting how completely his spirit has been broken by his misfortunes and her manipulative presence. He is essentially a man disarmed.
Hunyu, disheveled from just waking, greets him with surprising affection, her eyes sparkling with laughter. Shangzi, head down, asks to rent a rickshaw. She tells him to ask her father. Her seemingly warm greeting masks a shrewd calculation, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Hunyu's warm greeting, though it seems kind on the surface, carries a very clear undertone of proprietary triumph. Her sparkling eyes suggest a shrewd understanding of the situation, her distinct advantage. She knows he has nowhere else to go. Xiangzi's inability to look at her directly signifies his shame, his profound submission. This initial interaction immediately establishes the new power dynamic between them, where she holds all the cards and he's utterly at her mercy, having nowhere else to turn.
Old Master Lu, Hunyu's father, the factory owner, greets Xiangzi with a mix of annoyance and amusement, teases Xiangzi about his past attempts to buy a rickshaw, but readily agrees to rent him one. However, he has another plan. Wants Xiangzi to stay, help with his upcoming 69th birthday celebration. That's the 27th. Says he trusts Xiangzi more than his other rickshaw pullers, promises him hot pot.
Old Master Lu's character is complex, gruff, demanding, but also shrewd and, well, in his own way, transactional. His willingness to rent Xiangzi a rickshaw suggests practical consideration, but his invitation to help with the birthday celebration is a thinly veiled attempt to exert control, consolidate his power, using Xiangzi's loyalty and work ethic to his advantage. That kaf, which was Xiangzi's source of dread back in Chapter 11, is now inextricably linked with Hunyu, his deepening entanglement with the Liu family, effectively sealing his fate within their household, their schemes.
Xiangzi accepts, feeling he has accepted his fate. He decides to let the Liu family do with him whatever they please. Hunyu, pleased, gives him money for a broom, urges him to be energetic. Please the old man, hinting that our affair has hope.
Xiangxi's complete surrender, volure, is such a profound and tragic shift in his character. It's a bitter acceptance of his loss of autonomy, a resignation to whatever fate the Liu family imposes upon him. Huni's subtle encouragement to please the old man reveals her manipulative strategy, using Xiangxi to secure her own position, achieve her goals. This moment solidifies Xiangxi's status as a pawn in their family dynamic, a tool to be used and discarded at their convenience, further chipping away at his self-worth.
Xiangxi becomes like a dead man who can work. He operates on autopilot, his heart numb, consumed by this. He troves Kate Kultlawo, soft yet always big, no definite taste, but choking, like a sponge blockage. He works himself to exhaustion just to fall into a numb sleep.
That spongy blockage. It's such a powerful metaphor for Xiangxi's emotional repression, his complete inability to process his suffering. It symbolizes the slow death of his spirit, where work becomes this mechanical means to avoid thought, feeling, a way to simply exist without truly living. It's a vivid description of profound mental and emotional exhaustion, where he functions mechanically, devoid of joy or self-awareness. It's a key detail, highlighting the devastating psychological impact of his misfortunes, turning him into an automaton almost, a zombie.
We then get a glimpse into the elaborate birthday preparations. Construction of a foot, a warm tent with detailed decorations, hurried purchases, old Master Lu's impatient demands. He's a stickler for tradition, but also prone to sudden fits of rage, constantly sends Xiangxi on errands, pushing him to the brink of exhaustion.
The lavish birthday preparations, in stark contrast to Zhangzi's internal suffering, they highlight the profound social inequalities. Old Master Lu's demanding nature, his intense focus on appearances, reflect his desire to maintain status, project an image of prosperity, even at the expense of others' labor. Xiangxi's relentless work, described as similar way. Walking empty-handed is more tiring than running with a rickshaw, underscores the sheer physical toll of his subservience, emphasizing that even seemingly idle tasks for his masters are deeply draining and humiliating.
Old Master Liu, however, offers Xiangxi praise. Tis sujir donkamaje. If I had a son like you, I'd live a few years less happily. Hunyu winks at Xiangxi. The praise, while seemingly positive, feels insidious, doesn't it? Framing Xiangxi not as an equal, but as a desired, exploitable asset.
It absolutely does. This praise from Old Master Liu is deeply ironic. While it sounds like a compliment, it overtly positions Xiangxi as a surrogate son, someone to be exploited for labor, loyalty, rather than truly valued as an independent individual. It reveals Liu's desire for compliant, hardworking heir, but without the true familial connection or the cost that might entail. Huni's wink reinforces her complicity in this dynamic, hinting at their shared, unspoken agenda to use Xiangxi for their own benefit, solidifying his role as a pawn in their family's strategy.
But the other rickshaw pullers, they're simmering with resentment. They see Xiangxi as Liu's family's dog, desperately sucking up, an errand boy. They're jealous of Huni's favoritism towards him. Believing he's sucking up to Old Master Liu, thinks he's too good to talk to them now.
This detail is crucial for understanding the escalating social tensions within their own community. The other rickshaw pullers, who fundamentally share Xiangxi's class background, his daily struggles, feel betrayed by his apparent assimilation into the Liu family's orbit. Their anger is born out of their own exploitation, the perceived injustice of Xiangxi's favored treatment. It highlights the internal divisions within the oppressed class, where solidarity is often undermined by envy, suspicion, proving that even among the downtrodden, hierarchy and resentment can fester, making collective action incredibly difficult.
A spark of rebellion and a desperate revelation. Chapter 14.
The birthday celebration itself, it's a grand affair. Old Master Liu is initially very pleased, basking in the attention, the gifts. He sees himself as having improved compared to his old-fashioned friends. But even amidst the success, he feels a desolate sadness. He's a widower, his only daughter is like a man, and he longs for a son to carry on his legacy. He thinks, isn't everything for nothing? His outward show of success just can't fill that inner void.
This contrast between the external celebration and the internal desolation is incredibly poignant. Old Master Li's satisfaction is entirely superficial, masking a deep loneliness, anxiety about his legacy. His desire for a son is a reflection of those deeply entrenched patriarchal societal values, where a male heir is considered essential for continuing the family name, the business.
Right.
Is merely about outward appearance. Inwardly, he struggles with the same human vulnerabilities as anyone else, highlighting the emptiness of status without genuine connection or fulfillment of traditional expectations.
This underlying bitterness fuels his bad temper, and it manifests in the most dramatic way during the morning meal with the rickshaw pullers. They're already annoyed about being forced to leave after eating, not being allowed to pull rickshaws on such a busy New Year's Day. Despite being given a free day's rental yesterday, they all brought gifts, seeing themselves as guests, not just workers.
Oh, the scene with the rickshaw pullers at the feast is a powder keg ready to ignite. Their deep resentment towards Old Master Lu, combined with their forced guest status, the financial burden of having to bring gifts. It creates this palpable tension. They feel exploited even when seemingly offered a favor, highlighting the constant power imbalance, their lack of true autonomy. Their anger towards Old Master Lu, whom they can't confront directly, is inevitably redirected towards Xiangzi, the immediate accessible target for their frustrations.
Jiangzi, assuming he's exempt from being rolled out after eating, sits with them, wants to appear friendly, but he becomes the direct target of their pent-up anger. They taunt him, say he's a distinguished guest now, with a great job as a show, a bag carrier, implying a kept man or maybe even a pimp. They accuse him of using internal skills rather than honest labor to get ahead. These accusations strike right at the very core of his identity as a proud, hardworking man.
This verbal assault is utterly brutal. The taunts, particularly that accusation of being a tree, are designed to cut Xiangzi deeply, striking at his pride, his identity as an honest laborer. They're a projection of the other puller's own frustrations, their perceived injustices, aimed at someone they see as betraying their shared struggles by seemingly finding favor with the oppressor. Xiangzi's initial numbness, his later silence. It shows his internal struggle to absorb this profound humiliation without reacting, as he tries to maintain his chosen path of stoic endurance.
Xiangzi's face turns red, then pale, as all his past grievances just rush back. He's been bottling up so much, and now it feels like, oh dear, pent-up water bursting out at an outlet. When one rickshaw puller calls him bear, mute eating dumplings, knows what's up, implying he's secretly shrewd, calculating, Xiangzi snaps. He stands up, face deathly pale, challenges the man. Say that outside, dare you?
This explosion of anger, it's such a crucial turning point for Xiangzi. It's the culmination of all the bullying, the humiliation, his profound sense of injustice, finally breaking through his forced stoicism. The proverb suggests he's a calculating opportunist, which is the complete antithesis of his self-perception as a straightforward, honest worker.
Right.
His challenge, though completely unexpected, shows this flicker of his former strength, a desperate primal need to reclaim some dignity through confrontation. The immediate silence from the others indicates the shock of his unprecedented reaction.
The tension is thick, like, chomp, chirping birds in a forest suddenly seeing an eagle. Xiangzi stands alone, taller than the others, feeling his isolation, but also this angry conviction that he could take them all on. He repeats his challenge. The others, realizing they've pushed too far, back down, claiming they were just teasing you. Old Master Lu intervenes, orders Xiangzi to sit down, scolds the others.
This scene perfectly illustrates the fragile nature of social hierarchies, the volatile emotional landscape among the rickshaw pullers. Xiangzi's sudden transformation from passive victim to defiant aggressor is powerful, revealing that his spirit, though battered, still contains this spark of fierce pride. His sense of isolation, even amidst the group, underscores his unique burden. Yet for a moment, his raw anger commands respect. The swift de-escalation by the other pullers and Old Master Lu's intervention confirmed their fear of direct confrontation and the established power dynamics within the factory.
Xiangzi walks away from the table, unable to eat. While he feels a certain release, he immediately regrets the confrontation, realizing he's alienated the only people he might have had common ground with. He laments his lack of true friends, wonders if being honest and disciplined is truly useless. This is a moment of profound introspection, a true crisis of belief for him.
This is a truly profound moment of internal reevaluation for Xiangzi. His regret, despite the brief catharsis of his outburst, signifies his growing awareness of his isolation. His questioning of honesty and discipline points to a deeper moral crisis. If his virtues only lead to suffering and alienation, what truly is the point of adhering to them? This paves the way for a radical shift in his character, a cynical adaptation to a world that seems to reward cunning and opportunism over integrity.
And this next development, It completely shifts Zhangzi's reality. He starts to envision a new path for himself, one where he sheds his old values, becomes a rascal, a scoundrel. This new Zhangzi Shu befriends everyone, takes advantage everywhere, drinks others' tea, smokes others' cigarettes, doesn't repay debts, doesn't dodge cars, urinates anywhere, constantly fools with police. A few days in jail is nothing. He concludes that bad guys are carved from good people, and even regrets not actually fighting.
This is perhaps the most devastating psychological shift for Zhangzi. It's a complete inversion of his former self, born directly out of deep trauma, profound disillusionment. He embraces the very behaviors he once disdained, seeing them as a form of freedom, even a heroic defiance. Aedulis.
This is the ultimate cost of his suffering, the complete erosion of his core values. He recognizes that survival in this harsh world requires shedding the very traits that made him good. It's a tragic loss of his innocence, his dignity, perhaps the most painful kind of defeat, a defeat of the spirit.
Meanwhile, Old Master Liu has been closely watching Hunyu and Shangzi. Seeing Hunyu's unusual obedience, her eyes constantly following Shangzi, he feels a growing sadness. Fearing his daughter will leave him, leaving him with no male heir, his life's work in vain. He thinks Shangzi is just a stinking rickshaw puller, utterly not good enough to be his son-in-law.
Old Master Liu's internal struggle here, mirroring Shanzi's earlier despair, shows how deeply family and legacy concerns affect him. His pride, his ingrained class consciousness clash intensely with his profound loneliness. His utter contempt for Zhangzi's social status, despite his reliance on Zhangzi's labor, reveals the deep-seated snobbery that prevents him from truly seeing Zhangzi as a worthy partner for his daughter. He views Zhangzi as a useful tool, but never an equal, which sets the stage for the dramatic confrontation that's about to erupt.
As the guests dwindle, Old Master Liu's temper flares again. Fueled by his dwindling spirits, Low Gift returns, starts complaining about everything, the exorbitant cost of the party, the poor quality of the food. He curses, calling everyone PT a bunch of monkey bastards for taking advantage of him. Hunyu tries to stop him, but he turns his anger directly on her.
Old Master Liu's public tirade is this volatile release of his suppressed frustrations, his insecurities. The rapid transition from complaining about money to violently attacking Hunyu highlights his inability to control his emotions, his tendency to lash out at the most immediate target. His perceived financial losses reinforce his feeling of being exploited, and he projects this feeling onto everyone around him, including his own daughter, whom he increasingly sees as another source of his misery, a threat to his peace.
Huni, tired, utterly frustrated, decides she won't take it anymore. Confronts her father, telling him his party has nothing to do with her. Their argument escalates. And Old Master Liu, seeing Shangzi sweeping in the tent, points to him and shouts, "I remember me!" This is the ultimate ultimatum. A truly public and shocking declaration.
This is the moment of direct confrontation, a dramatic escalation that has been building for chapters. Old Master Liu's ultimatum reveals his absolute refusal to accept Shangzi as a potential son-in-law. He sees Zhangzi as a profound threat to his family's honor, his own legacy, embodying everything he despises about the lower class. The public nature of this argument, with guests still present, intensifies the shame, the pressure on both Hunyu and Shangzi, making their predicament undeniably, irrevocably public.
Hunyu, realizing her plan is falling apart faster than expected, makes a shocking, desperate move. Stops Yangzi, who's ready to leave, turns to her father shouting, "I'm pregnant, it's Yangzi's." Where he goes, I go. Will you give me to him or kick us both out? Old Master Liu is utterly stunned, hits his own face in disbelief. The card players stop, completely confused.
This revelation, it's the ultimate strategic move by Hunyu. It's a calculated, desperate gamble to force her father's hand, ruthlessly exploiting the cultural imperative around pregnancy and marriage, particularly the immense shame associated with an unwed mother.
Right.
Her bluntness, the public nature of her declaration, amplify the shock and shame for Old Master Liu, leaving him with very few palatable options. It completely changes the dynamic, shifting the power from the father to the daughter, and by extension to Zhangzi, albeit indirectly and through her audacious deceit.
Hunyu, feeling this perverse satisfaction in her declaration, continues to insult her father, accusing him of living for nothing at 69, calling him a hypocrite. She even challenges him to hold another party for their wedding. Old Master Liu, enraged, threatens to burn down the tent before letting her use it. When she asks for money if she leaves, he brutally refuses, saying, "Who? not a single cent. She reminds him of her years of service, how she saved his money from wild women. She then turns to Xiangzi for support, saying, Hua, you speak.
Hunio's continued defiance, even after her shocking announcement, shows her incredible resilience, her absolute refusal to be controlled. Her accusations against her father are deeply cutting, exposing his own moral failings, his hypocrisy. This confrontation becomes a battle of wills. Hunio, using every weapon at her disposal, including her supposed pregnancy, her public shaming of her father. Her turning to Yangzi for support highlights his symbolic importance in this power play, even as he remains utterly silent and paralyzed, unable to confirm or deny her bold, life-altering claims.
Trapped by Fate, Chapter 15.
Zhengzi is completely paralyzed in this moment. He can't fight an old man, can't fight a woman. His physical strength is utterly useless. He can't even play the rascal he just imagined himself becoming. He feels trapped by appearances. Since Hunyu has publicly defied her father for him, he feels he must somehow act like he's a manly man. Even though he has absolutely nothing to say, he can only stand there waiting for the dust to settle. His internal conflict renders him utterly immobile, voiceless.
Xiangxi's immobility is such a powerful illustration of his complete loss of agency. His traditional understanding of masculinity, being strong, protective, is rendered entirely useless in this complex, emotional, social confrontation. He is caught in this web of expectations, public performance, unable to act on his own will. His silence, a repeated motif throughout these chapters, signifies his utter defeat, the profound suppression of his true feelings, showing how completely he has been disarmed by these unexpected, overwhelming turns of events.
The other guests awkwardly try to mediate, then quickly slip away, leaving the Blue family and Shangzi to their unresolved conflict. Hunyu, quick thinking, grabs Mr. Feng, the accountant, arranges for Shangzi to stay at the coal shop, promising a quick wedding. She tells Shangzi, "I won't run away," then locks herself in her room, crying dramatically. Her efficiency and performance are striking, even in chaos.
Hunyu's actions here are incredibly shrewd, decisive. Her immediate arrangements, despite the emotional chaos of the public argument, demonstrate her sharp practical intelligence, her fierce determination to control the narrative, the outcome. Her theatrical crying is a strategic performance, designed to evoke sympathy, solidify her position, ensuring her father cannot easily back out of this forced situation.
Right.
This highlights her manipulative nature, her remarkable ability to bend circumstances to her will, even if it means resorting to deceit and dramatic public displays of emotion.
Old Master Lu, meanwhile, is persuaded by Mr. Feng to go inside. He curses Hunyu, disowning her publicly, refusing to give her a single penny, wishes she would learn the hard way whether her CM father is better or a wild man. The remaining guests quickly depart, eager to avoid further drama.
Old Master Lu's public disowning of Hunyu, though fueled by immense rage and hurt, is a desperate attempt to regain control, save face after his public humiliation. His repeated refusal to give her money underscores his belief that financial control is the ultimate power. He's determined to strip her of any resources. His bitter wish for her to suffer reflects the depth of his anger, his profound disappointment in her choices, especially as they relate to his own prestige, the legacy he desperately wishes to maintain.
Things move fast. Hunyu quickly rents 2 small rooms, gets them whitewashed, asks Mr. Feng to write red Udi, happiness characters for the walls, arranges for a wedding sedan chair with musicians, makes her own red silk wedding gown, sets the date for the 6th day of the Lunar New Year. She tells Shangzi to buy new clothes, new from head to toe for this one time in his life. She is taking complete charge of their future, with or without her father's blessing.
Hunyu's sheer efficiency in orchestrating this wedding is remarkable. She takes complete control, demonstrating her resourcefulness, fierce determination to secure her marriage, her new life. The swiftness of the preparations also reflects a pragmatic approach to minimizing further conflict, solidifying their new status. The choice of a starry sedan chair, the specific date selection, show her desire for a proper, albeit rushed, celebration, asserting her will despite her father's bitter rejection.
But Shangzi only has 5 yuan. Hunyu demands to know what happened to the 30-plus yuan she gave him. Shangzi has no choice but to tell her the whole story. Mr. Cao's family, the detective who stole his money. Hunyu seems half believing, half doubting. But she gives him 15 yuan, warning him to look like a proper groom.
Xiangzi's financial vulnerability, reduced to a mere 5 yuan, highlights the devastating impact of the detective's theft and his continued powerlessness. Hunyu's skepticism, despite ultimately giving him money, reinforces the transactional nature of their relationship, her underlying distrust. The scene underscores Xiangxi's continued powerlessness. He is financially dependent on Hunyu, further eroding his sense of self-worth, independence, as he cannot even afford the clothes for his own wedding without her.
On the wedding day, Hunyu rides the sedan chair alone. No father, no family. But the streets are festive with gongs and drums. Xiangxi, in his new, cheap clothes, feels strange, almost unrecognizable to himself. He moves from the black coal shop to a white new room with blood-red happiness characters, finding it all mocking. He sees Hunyu in her red coat and makeup as both old and new, a fierce beast who has trapped him and intends to deal with him. He feels his strength being drained, unable to escape. He even experiences hallucinations, seeing Hunyu's ugly smile everywhere.
This entire wedding sequence is such a powerful, disturbing depiction of Xiangxi's psychological breakdown. The white room with blood-red characters symbolizes this false purity, a sterile environment contrasted sharply with the violence of his internal state, the pervasive deceit. Hunyu's transformation into a fierce beast in his mind reflects his deep-seated fear, resentment of her manipulative power, his raw perception of being utterly trapped.
Yeah.
His physical and visual distortions, the red dots, Hunyu's ugly smile, are terrifying manifestations of his trauma, the psychological prison he finds himself in. He feels utterly consumed, his very essence being sucked dry, a man truly devoured by his circumstances.
And then, the final deception is revealed on their wedding night. Hunyu was never pregnant. She had simply stuffed a pillow under her waistband. She laughs, says she had to wrong you a bit to get him to obediently agree, then brazenly demands his gratitude for leaving her father for him.
This confession is the ultimate act of manipulation, stripping Xiangxi of his last shred of autonomy, dignity. The pillow deception reveals Hunyu's utter ruthlessness, her complete disregard for Xiangxi's feelings, reducing him to a mere means to an end. It redefines their entire relationship as one fundamentally built on deceit, confirming his worst fears about being trapped, exploited. His internal struggle shifts from external circumstances to the intimate, suffocating control of his wife, as she asserts her complete and unapologetic dominance over him.
The next morning, Xiangxi wanders aimlessly, sees other rickshaw pullers who seem more spirited than him, feels he's been stifled in a gourd for days, feels reduced to begging from his wife, that red-coated tiger-tooth thing, that thing that sucks people's essence, feels he's not a person, but just a piece of meat, like Puchang, a small mouse held by a cat, wants to run away, to wash away the unclean, disgusting something that clings to him.
This powerful imagery vividly portrays Xiangxi's complete dehumanization. The stifling gourd is a potent metaphor for his trapped, suffocating existence. And the red-coated tiger-tooth thing expresses his visceral revulsion, his fear of Hunyu, who he now truly sees as this monstrous entity.
Yeah.
The idea that he's not a person, but just a piece of meat, reinforces his profound sense of objectification, powerlessness. His desire to wash away the filth reflects his desperate need to cleanse himself of the shame, the moral degradation he feels, a physical manifestation of his desire for spiritual purification from this nightmare.
He ends up at a public bathhouse, stripped naked, feels immense shame, even disgust at his own body. In the hot water, closes his eyes, feeling the accumulated filth leaving him, yet knowing the impurity in his heart being seen as a man who stole a woman can never be washed away.
The bathhouse scene is such a powerful ritual of attempted purification that ultimately fails. Xiangxi's shame at his own body reflects his shattered self-image, his profound feeling of inner corruption, as if the shame has permeated his very being. The tragic realization that the moral filth cannot be washed away with mere water signifies the profound, lasting psychological damage he has sustained. It highlights the deeply ingrained social judgments that now define him, regardless of his physical cleanliness, underscoring the idea that reputation, once tarnished, is almost impossible to restore in a society driven by gossip and appearance.
He rushes out of the bathhouse, still feeling unclean, wanders to Tianquao, a place that once brought him genuine joy, performers, lively atmosphere. But now, amidst the laughter, Tianquao's laughter no longer had a part for him. He can no longer laugh.
Tianqiu, once a source of genuine happiness, escape, now serves as this poignant contrast to Xiangxi's internal state. His utter inability to find joy, or even laugh where he once did. It signifies the depth of his despair, the extent to which his spirit has been crushed. It's a tragic portrayal of how continuous suffering can strip away one's capacity for simple pleasure, genuine connection, leaving a void where joy once resided. He is, in essence, a ghost walking through a vibrant, living place.
He realizes he can't leave Beiping, can't just wander aimlessly. He has no other viable path but to return to Hunyo. He rationalizes. He has endured all grievances. Why be stubborn about this one thing? He envisions the small, white, warm house with the red goo as his home, the only place where he has everything.
This is Jiangxi's final, devastating surrender to his circumstances. His rationalization reflects a tragic acceptance of his fate, where remaining in a miserable situation becomes preferable to the utter void of having nothing. The home, he envisions, while a place of entrapment, also offers a basic level of security, physical comfort that he now desperately craves. It highlights the grim choices available to someone in his position. A bad certainty is often deemed better than an overwhelming uncertainty, even if it means sacrificing his soul, his dignity.
He returns home. Hunyu has already prepared lunch. Appears less like a new bride, more like a seasoned, efficient wife. Jiangxi feels a new, unfamiliar warmth, the comfort of a home. Yet he still feels strange, restless. Hunyu immediately asserts her dominance, scolding him for leaving without telling her.
The domestic scene is this complex mix of comfort and relentless control. Hunyu's transformation into an efficient wife reinforces her capability, but also her underlying power, her desire for mastery over every aspect of their lives. Jiangxi's ambivalent feelings, the nascent comfort of a home juxtaposed with his restless unease, show his internal conflict.
Right. Hunyu's immediate assertion of control, even over his movements, firmly establishes the power dynamic in their new life together. He recognizes he's married a demon, but one who can cook and clean, making his resentment complicated by a newfound, albeit conditional, sense of security.
He tries to rest, but is called to help clean. He resents her, feeling like a servant girl, but suppresses his anger, seeing no real point in fighting. He feels his entire life is a grievance.
His profound inability to express his anger and the crushing feeling that his entire life is a grievance marks the deepening of his psychological suffering. It suggests a complete lack of emotional outlet, leading to a profound sense of internal oppression where his suppressed anger turns inward, consuming him. He has lost his voice, his will, his very sense of self, tragically accepting his fate as a permanent state of victimhood. Hunyu, wanting to enjoy her newlywed status, proposes going out, stroll the streets, visit a temple. Jiangxi refuses, feeling it would be shameful to be seen with her, fearing the gossip of other rickshaw pullers. He insists he can't be idle. Jiangxi's refusal to go out highlights his pervasive shame, his acute awareness of social perception. He knows Hunyu's reputation, fears the judgment of his peers, which would further erode his already fragile dignity, especially given her public pregnancy, the scandalous circumstances of their marriage.
Yeah, exactly.
His insistence on working, on not being idle, is his only remaining link to his former self. A desperate attempt to assert some form of autonomy, escape the suffocating domesticity, the shame of his new, constrained status. Hunyu scoffs at his desire to work, calling it pre-sick, a fated life of suffering. Suggests he learned from her father, who makes money without hard labor. Then she reveals her final, shocking plan. They will use her own about 500 yuan to enjoy themselves. And when it's almost gone, they'll humble themselves, return to old Master Liu, inherit his money, his business. She believes this is a much better path than him continuing to be a beast of burden.
Hunyu's plan, while offering a clear path to financial security, is ultimately a complete subjugation of Jiangxi's will, his deeply held values. Her contempt for his CI reveals her disdain for his work ethic, her embrace of a more parasitic existence, one based on manipulation, inheritance, rather than honest labor. Her suggestion to inherit her father's wealth is a cynical proposition that requires Jiangxi to fully abandon his principles, become a slave to her and her father. This plan, which turns him into a bird in a cage that can be sold anytime, is the ultimate trap for his spirit, promising comfort at the cost of his very soul.
Jiangxi is stunned by this revelation, realizing accepting her money means losing his last vestiges of dignity, becoming a slave to his wife, his father-in-law, sees himself as a bird trapped in a net. He protests, insisting he wants to pull his rickshaw. He loves pulling rickshaws. But Hunyu delivers the final, definitive blow. When that final exchange, it's brutal, utterly definitive. Hunyu's absolute prohibition of his rickshaw pulling strips Jiangxi of his last connection to his identity, his means of independence, effectively castrating his professional life, his sense of purpose.
Her disgust with his stinking sweat is a visceral rejection of his very being as a laborer, a disdain for his working-class identity.
Yeah. Her assertion of financial dominance, I paid, you didn't spend a penny, leaves absolutely no room for argument. Solidifying her complete control over him is a complete victory of manipulation, practical power over Shangzi's will and dignity. His final, desperate silence signifies his utter defeat. His complete and tragic surrender to a life where he is little more than a kept man devoid of true purpose or autonomy. Outro.
Wow. So, what does this all mean for Shangzi? We've followed him through this absolute whirlwind of hope, despair, deceit, manipulation. From a hardworking man with a simple dream, he's been stripped bare by external forces and finally trapped. Trapped by a relationship that, yeah, it offers a semblance of security, but demands the ultimate price. His autonomy, his identity.
What's truly fascinating here is how Xiangzi's repeated struggles against his environment, both societal and deeply personal, ultimately lead to this profound form of tragic surrender. He begins with such a strong moral compass, an incredible work ethic, but the relentless pressures of poverty, betrayal, manipulation, they relentlessly chip away at his spirit. His journey forces us, really, to confront the harsh realities faced by those at the bottom of the social ladder, where even the most virtuous intentions can be utterly crushed by a system designed to exploit them.
That makes you wonder, doesn't it? In a world where even good intentions, hard work can be exploited, where personal integrity is constantly challenged, what would you sacrifice for survival? Is there a point where the cost of holding on to oneself becomes simply too high?
And this raises that important question. Is Shangzi primarily a victim of an unforgiving fate? Or do his ultimate choices, his silences, his moments of surrender, do they contribute to his predicament? While he faces these overwhelming external forces, his final acceptance, even when there might have been opportunities to resist, it invites us to consider that fine, often blurred line between resignation and agency when someone is pushed to the absolute limit. What truly is left when a person loses everything, including their own will, when they're reduced to mere existence?
Something to mull over as you go about your day. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Rickshaw Boy. We hope you found these nuggets of insight both informative and, well, thought-provoking. Until next time, stay curious.